Casey Stoney on her media call after they won the Pinatar Cup, they kind of a huge offensive output to beat Chinese Taipei 7-0. She said, I continue to be confused why Ali Du wasn't involved before this. And so you have players like Mimi, you have players like Olivia Smith, even Gabby Carl, where if, you're saying Bev had her certain kind of player, or you have players that are preferred because they fit into her system, but there are players who are game breakers that were ignored consistently. And I don't care what system you're playing or who you prefer. If you're going to be disparaging of the Portuguese league, that's fine. But if a player is scoring prolifically in any league, you bring them in and you give them a legitimate shot, right?
Well, you are now assuming you have the budget to do that. So there's lots of different reasons. Like these are like women coaches. We stick together. We need to. There's all different reasons why things happen, and I'm not privy to them. I don't know the backstory of why they didn't come in. I don't think anyone does other than Canada Soccer. And so, I think I'd just be careful about questioning that outlet. Like, when I was a club coach, people were always questioning why I didn't play players, very obviously to them, and I'm sure Casey suffered that as well. So it's like, it's great that she has had the foresight to bring someone into camp who's performing and wonderful for Canada, that we've got another gem. Canada is another. That's what I mean though. Like, there's a budget problem in Canada Soccer. I'm not sure you're aware of this.
What? Oh no. Yeah. Well aware.
Like, testing out numbers, you hope that there's time for it. I don't know what her Bev's constraints were, and I hope that they're lifted for Casey and that she's able to see as many players for as long as possible. And I think what Claire brought up is, John Herdman. I just really believe in that man, and he created pathways for so many of his players to stay in the game. So Carmen and I are the technical coaches that have continued to stay in the coaching element, but Rob and Gail staying in the sort of sports psych. We've Dinah, who's just, casually helping soccer in Canada at the moment.
Casually spearheading women's professional
casually
soccer.
Leading the change of, anyway, I think we know. We have, Candace Chapman in the US, running or helping run a club with a team down there. I'm missing so many people.
You can even say Melissa Tancredi, who's also Dr. Melissa Tancredi.
Head of medical. Yeah. Selenia, her partner, physiotherapist. So many of those women stayed in sport because of a pathway that was created from John's legacy. So whatever you think about John, what I will say is, like, I've never had a coach work so hard to make sure that his players had pathways in sport. And I think we see that, and we haven't anymore. Like, again, I don't know what was offered to Sinky, but I'm glad that she's now in an ownership position with the Rise. Desi, like, what's been offered to her? Does she want to coach? Does she want to be a sports psych? I think she'd be an amazing sort of culture expert, kind of like Robin's path of what she did. Sophie Schmidt, what are we giving to these players to try and keep them back in? Because Amy, we lost you. Claire, we lost you. You forged your own pathways. There's no one helped you. No one continues to help you. You just elbows out and make your opportunities. And you need help. Like Kaylin, Kyle on commentate.
She's smashing it. Yeah. Host of MLS on Apple, MLS Season Pass. Like, she's killing it.
Just people. And like, Kaylin was supported through that. And Claire, you weren't. Like, Amy, you were not. These are because she put, anyway, all this to say, I think it's such a great move by Canada Soccer to get someone from outside the fold with how much has happened.
Oh, totally.
We needed someone, and Jesse as well. Like, let's just clean. If Carmen got, I think the world of Carm and I are like, chalk and cheese. We fight all the time. We actually disagree with how we like teams to play. We like different types of players. Everything about us is opposite. If anyone played with the two of us, we were never close friends. We've had to really work on sort of working together. We played next to each other on the field, and then becoming a coach with her has been amazing. She's my number one support. Like, I've had her into my Welsh camp, which was so much fun. She's always a call for me. But if she'd got the job, everyone would have blamed her for some association with something, like, we needed a new person, a new face, a great coach like Casey Stoney, who can come in and just bring, like, just let everyone breathe for a second and just like calm down, and then bring her great energy, her wonderful like just way of being and in front of the media as well. That's obviously going down so well, and Jesse Marsh as well. Is exactly what's needed in the Canadian landscape. And we just hope in the future that we have another group of Canadian coaches that are at least in the conversation for what might come down the road.
It's such an interesting point. Rain, go ahead, Claire.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, in defense of you guys though, like I don't think it would have felt like inside the call is coming from the inside the house hire if either you or Carm had been hired. Like, I don't.
Was that a Scream reference?
Yeah, it was.
The call is coming from inside the house.
The call is coming from inside the house. So I don't think it would have felt like that. I think that would have felt like a fresh face too, right? I don't think that would have really, because I think there's a generation difference there, and you're right. Okay, so maybe you both played under Herdman, sure, fair, but I think it would have still felt I think it would have felt more fresh than you think it would have.
You would have known that, but for the general public, it was just more people like
came through. That's my perspective. Yeah, for sure.
And you know that it's all being set, is all different, but you have an insight that a lot of people don't. And the Canadian public, I think, deserved a break. Do you know what I mean? And
you know who else deserves a break and a little bit of freedom to do their job? You and Carm, because like we started this conversation off, like I was asking about your perspective and your insight to say like a Jesse Marsh situation, a Casey Stoney situation, coming in from the club game, assuming the role as manager of the women's national team and the men's national team respectively. And like how pressure early on, that was like the accelerant for Jesse Marsh to have success early on. It could have gone pear-shaped. It didn't. And I think that they got to a place, I think, earlier than even he expected. And they've continued kind of on that trajectory. Casey Stoney has the luxury of time where it can be clunky, it can be rusty. We don't really know what she's going to implement, and that's okay because we're seeing the players. Yeah. But like your point about pressure, like that they can come in and assume those roles as an outsider, and that in itself is liberating. Whereas I think it would have been like shackles, or you would have felt reined in as former or ex-national team players. And you're right. I think you would have been scapegoated unfairly a lot of the time and blame pinned on you unfairly. It's such a great point. I never thought about it like that.
It's true. But at the same time, both of you have forged a coaching career outside of the CSA, right? Like you've both forged club coaching careers, international coaching careers elsewhere. Like it's not like you came up coaching through, the youth teams and this, it doesn't feel as institutional is all I'm saying. So,
you guys
just
have
in your defense, Rhea.
No, I know. And I like,
I would have yelled at you on TV.
The dream one day, I love Canada. You know how much I love Canada. I want to move back to Canada one day, maybe coach in the national, soccer league in the future. But it just needed something new, and that's great. I think that's such a fabulous hire, and a really strong woman who's very articulate in her defense of a lot of issues that need to be spoken about. So I think I was most sad maybe for Carm, who I think has been, I have my own history that it was like not going to, like trauma didn't need to be added to trauma for people. It needed a fresh start. But I do think Carm is one of the most underrated coaches Canada's produced. And I'm hoping that she's obviously working hard as assistant coach at Louisville, but I think at some point in the future, she'll be leading a team again, and we'll see what we'd be missing. Like she is a top coach. Can I make a random point that you said earlier, and I want to put back on?
Please make a random point.
All right.
Random points.
So this is a coaching point, right? We all have our philosophies, and it is what it is. Like I have my own personal opinion on how other coaches coach, but it's irrelevant, right? Like I can only control what I do, and then there's people that judge what I do. Whatever. And I guess you guys get paid.
That's us. She's talking about us.
Yeah, I know.
She's talking about us.
She gave you side eye, Claire.
I know. It wasn't as subtle as And all this to say, so I don't think Bev rotated as much as I would have wanted to see. So she had great success with the team, and she really did stick by it. What we don't look at is the development of a coach and where they come through. So the FA has a history of this, and Serena Wiegman won the Euros on the back of not switching a team. And so it's kind of interesting when you see a coach's development, what they know. Casey's worked in development, she has, and she had to do that for Man U. She really had to develop those players and bring them through like their youth system and put them in a professional environment, which I think is really exciting for a national team coach if they've had a youth development background. Bev had one as well, but it was very much structured in a certain way. And then she went to work in England, and that worked for that group of players in England, the non-rotation. And Serena is now being held to account for not switching players as much. So you're starting to see it. So it's like an evolution of a coach as well and their experience. So Serena was really, I thought, lauded for being brave enough to not make changes through the Euros. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, no, of course. And it's the counterpoint. And their form recently has been really spotty, and they've struggled until that victory at the end of the window versus
they
Spain.
Beat last night, and Jessie Park scored it, who's a young player coming through. But so all this to say, there's these, that used to be like, does a coach actually know their starting lineup or don't they? They're always fiddling and always in it. And then they're like, this coach won't change their players. They're exhausted on their legs. Like, pick a moment and pick a winning team. And then I'll be like, look what Spain does. They never rotate. And then everyone goes through that cycle and like, look, oh, Spain's a bad example. Spain, look at how many players they've brought up through the youth system. But now those players are now the ones never getting switched. Like,
it's really interesting because it's the same thing with the U.S., right? Their worst performance ever at a World Cup, and Andonovski was like, that is basically, I don't know necessarily what led to him being fired, but I think it was part of it. Very little rotation, right? And now Hayes, she changed her entire 11 prior to them beating Australia 2-1 in the She Believes, and which they went on to lose to Japan.
What, 5 years that they haven't won the She Believes Cup.
Mm-hmm.
So one got fired for not rotating, and the other one's not had the success that maybe people thought of because she's rotating, but that will come to good in the future. She's making future. So like the reactionary piece is like, where are we in this cycle of player? And she's inheriting a team without a Sophie Schmidt, without a Desi Scott, without a Christine Sinclair. And I'm sorry, but when those people are on your roster, there's pressure to play them.
Yeah, but that's why it feels like
she can not
a cool moment to be able to find what the identity of that team looks like, right?
Mm-hmm. And without the pressure and the backlash of not playing your superstars because they're at a time in their career. So it's a really, really cool moment she's coming in. And I love that she's seeing so many players. Yeah. I just wanted to make the comment because you guys know it. It's just something that doesn't get mentioned that often. And I'm like, that's what I mean by holding. There's enough to hold over Bev's head. Like there's enough, we're aware, but then there's all this other stuff. I'm like, well, you can look at any coach and at any time in their career, they've probably been blamed for one or the other of those, not rotating enough, or rotating too much.
I mean, it's true. I just wanted to make the point that we did it well before.
You were blaming her way before. Yeah, I know.
Right. That was one of my biggest criticisms.
I was like, I was the first one to blame. I just want to put that out there.
I was like the hipster critic.
Okay, so off the back of that chat, 2 friendlies potentially at home for Canada in April. Who's your best 11? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, Jesus.
Claire's got it.
Oh, I don't have that kind of brain power right now.
I was busy.
But I think the good part right now is like that is a very ambiguous concept, I think, with this team, which is like as Reen was just saying, like it's a cool place to be. It's like
embrace it, right?
Yeah.
Go all in on the uncertainty right now, because we're talking about tinkering. That is, you want to do that now. Is the time
I can't remember the last time this team's been in that position, because Ree's right. Like there's just been such a long time where there's these kind of like long-term vets who there's a lot of pressure to play, and there's like, it's where do those players fit in?